Hello, Insatiable listeners. It's Allie. I want to let you know that Truce with Food 2025 is open for registration on January 2nd, 2025. I know some of you might be listening to past episodes, so I just want to reiterate this is current for 2025. And if you're interested in learning more about Truce with Food, I want you to come to my free live breakthrough session, Stop the Quick Fix Cycle, Why Band-Aid Solutions Make Emotional Eating Worse, and how to actually get results, okay? So if you're at the point of you're tired from the endless cycles, right, of being on track, off track, this is for you because the truth is it's not your willpower, it's not your discipline, it's your approach, okay? So I want you to join me on Wednesday, January 28th to get to the bottom of all of this. At this event, you're going to discover the hidden psychology behind quick fix solutions and how to finally release their grip on you. You're going to see the revolutionary goal-setting framework that creates lasting change without rigid rules and restrictions. I promise. You're going to learn how to break free from the exhausting perfectionism rebellion cycle that keeps you stuck. And no one is talking about this. And I'm serious, right? Like get it together, mainstream culture. And then there'll be some live Q&A to address your specific challenges. And in this breakthrough session, you're going to get an exclusive preview of how we set goals in Truce with Food, right? And this has helped hundreds of people break free from emotional eating. You're going to hear powerful success stories from past clients who had struggled with food for decades. And through this work, some of them forget they even had food issues. I mean, they remember, they have the journals to show them the same way that I do, but it's just not a thing for them anymore. And you're going to get an insider's view of the magic behind Truce with Food. Like, what do we really do? Because it really is different. And so it'll help you. You'll get to also see our supportive community and the lesson library. And again, this is perfect for people who are ready to dig deeper and up-level your results. Okay. So join us. And there's a link in the show notes. Again, that's free. And it's Wednesday, January 8th. And we will have a lot of Insatiable listeners. So you'll be in good company. I hope to see you there. Happy 2025. Yes, we are here on a new year. I'm not really down with the Gregorian calendar. Not feeling that jump start. It's also very snowy here and SESS daycare was canceled. So life is telling me, I'm going to catch the Lunar New Year here at the end of January. But I'm coming here to speak directly with you today, especially if you're over 40 or in that ballpark range, and you've been listening to me for a while. You've done a deep dive into my back catalog of close to 300 episodes. And a lot of what I'm saying makes sense to you. Like intellectually, you're like, yeah. So first of all, I appreciate you listening. Second, I want you to come to my breakthrough session this Wednesday, January 8th, which is in 2 days. Okay. You really need to come. Okay. There is a point where we need to listen and develop a sense of awareness. That's part of the change process. But where the rubber hits the road and the transformation happens is when we start to take action. And so if you've been listening for a while, I trust that it's probably time for you to take some action. Okay. So I want to invite you to this session. It is, and I'm going to have you pause right now and go to the show notes where there is a link for this breakthrough session, which is called Stop the Quick Fix Cycle, Why Band-Aid Solutions Make Emotional Eating Worse and How to Actually Get Results. So go to the show notes and register right now. And I'm going to pause so you can go to the show notes. And did I mention register right now? And I'll be back once you've done that, telling you why it's so important that you're there. Okay. Are you back? I know some of you didn't do this, but that's okay. I'm going to pause again. Just kidding. A lot of my clients are rebels. I am too. It's up to you. But again, the title of this breakthrough session that's happening Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time is called Stop the Quick Fix Cycle, Why Band-Aid Solutions Make Emotional Eating Worse and How to Get Results. And this breakthrough session is a preview of Truce with Food, which is my once a year flagship program. So if you don't take it now, you got to wait all the way till 2026. We're already 50% full. I am so excited. I think this narrative is finally starting to shift just a little bit. It's kind of where functional medicine was, I guess, like 15 years ago. But it's catching on faster than that because we're in a lot more rapidly changing times. But anyways, it's already 50% full with great people who are like ready to dive in and do the work. And registration closes in 2 weeks. So on January 20th. Okay. So I want to start off today, and what this mini episode is about is really about the top 3 things that I most often hear people considering truce with food. And these are beliefs, I guess we can call them, or they're really like mental chatter. Also about why you haven't found a sustainable solution thus far to health goals, weight goals, your relationship to food. And on the breakthrough session, I'm going to have 3 clients who told me some variation of what we're going to cover today. And we're going to do my version of before and after. So where they were before Truce with Food and afterwards, like really psychologically and what they really believed about maybe having tried everything. We'll go through that. And where they are now. It's going to be so fun. And some of these clients are like 5-6 years out so that you get that this is a sustainable solution. And I also want to mention, a lot of people come into New Year's and they're like, 95% of diets fail, or, make this the year that you're stick. And I want you to make this the year your habits stick. And a lot of people claim that they have different things, and maybe they do. But I want you to know that if you're struggling with that, you're not alone in that. It is basically known in the nutrition and fitness world that consistency for people with their food and exercise is basically non-existent or a real struggle. The start-stop cycle is known among those of us who work in this, okay? So it's not like, oh, everyone else is consistent and you're somehow missing out. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And we can chat about those in the breakthrough session. So if you haven't found a sustainable solution, again, it's not your fault. It's 90% of people are approaching these kind of exercise and eating changes as a willpower and discipline issue when they're not. And we're going to talk about that today, and then even more in depth at the breakthrough session. But also, if you have these beliefs, that's okay too. I tend to attract healthy skeptics who I love. I am one myself. And I want you to put you at ease that what you're going to learn at the breakthrough session and in this podcast is truly different. And the skepticism is well-founded because I've seen the marketing out there myself. I am so glad I can filter through what people are really claiming is different, but often actually isn't. Everyone's claiming that their approach is different, and yet it's often the same thing wrapped in a different package. The way that I can best describe it is I take Essa to the climbing gym, and he and I are both doing beginning routes, right? So when you go to a climbing gym, they tell you how hard the route is. And at our gym, VO is beginners. Okay. So I took Essa over there over Christmas and he got to the top and he was so excited with the blue route. He used a blue route to get to the top of the wall. Okay. And so then I said, Essa, why don't you try this green one? And it was a different route, but it was still VO. It was still beginner. Okay. And so he was so proud of himself. He's like, I did the green. And I was too, because he tried something different. Right. But essentially, it was still the same form. It was still a beginner form. And so this is what happens with diets, lifestyle programs, functional medicine. A lot of it is still rooted in restriction and control. So, but people claim it's different. And it's hard to know if you aren't like an expert in the field. Like, is this really the same form, the same design, but we think it's different? Okay. So totally understand the skepticism. So one of the first beliefs that clients come to Truce with Food is I have tried everything when it comes to changing food habits, right? Many have done Whole30. They've have or haven't tried functional medicine. They've done some sort of personal development. I have a lot of other health coaches and nutritionists myself who know a lot. They know a lot. And all of these things that you've already tried are so important, okay? They are really important in that they awaken our agency, okay? They help us know that we have choice, we have power. It's like when I found functional medicine 20 years ago. Oh my God, I can heal my gut and reverse my IBS. oh my God, I can heal my gut. And I thought I was depression free. I didn't realize that I had basically just gotten to zero with my moods, but I was stable for the first time. Right. So these things that we've done are so important. They help us understand we have agency. And these approaches don't address the missing piece, which we talk a lot about on this podcast, which is belonging or emotional safety. Okay. And this not only includes why you turn to food, but also in the program itself. Okay. So in Truce with Food, we want you to mess up. We want you to fall off track because that's where we learn, right? And you need a safe space to be frustrated, to feel guilt, to feel shame so that you can actually unpack what's happening rather than isolate and separate yourself and feel more alone in something. So we create this community that is such a healthy form of belonging. So you can take the time and take the risk really to look at what's happening. Okay. Frustration, nature designs frustration to move us to what works. But when we've tried the same thing over and over again, what that just does is it turns to shame over and it calcifies. And then pretty soon we get into basically a freeze nervous system response, which is just overwhelm, confusion, hopelessness, resignation. Okay. So you need belonging not only in the program, but also to teach you how to do belonging to really make sustainable change. Okay. So that is the first belief. I've tried everything. And I promise you that you haven't tried this stuff around belonging. And again, we're going to have clients talk about how this has changed everything for them. So the second belief clients tend to come with, and just let me back up. So life after Truce with Food is you have a new framework focused on belonging, not control. Okay. You're going on a completely different level of route on the climbing gym. You are not a beginner anymore. Not that you're a beginner if you've tried a ton of diets, right? I mean, again, we learn things every time we do these things. So they are important parts. Another belief or mental chatter that clients have is, I know what works, I just can't stick with it. Okay. So what we're talking about here is a consistency issue, right? And like I said, this is known in the nutrition and exercise industries. So it's not a you thing. It is a giant way industry approach to these things. Okay. So consistency issues come from belonging and safety needs not being met, not a lack of willpower or discipline. Okay. So belonging and safety can seem abstract, and we make it very concrete, very applicable to you in Truce with Food. But you kind of have to go through the exercises for that to happen. It's a lot of experiential learning. Okay. So, but if you can think of for yourself when you feel separate or alone, okay, that is when you don't feel safe, you don't belong. And that separateness can be, oh, if I was thin, this would not be happening. If I was thinner, I would have a partner. If I had lost weight, I have more confidence to go for a pay raise, right? When you feel like this is something I'm uniquely struggling with, right? Then the issue isn't about food knowledge or a better plan. It's about understanding and addressing your deeper needs, okay? Because turning to food when you're stressed makes sense. And this can also mean if you restrict, right? The cool thing about belonging is it doesn't matter what sort of eating, disordered eating you've had in the past. Okay. Whether you've restricted, whether you've binged. I'm going to have my client, Christy, who struggled with orthorexia, and also binging, right? Like whatever the labels can be helpful, but ultimately everything comes back to belonging. And this makes sense because food mimics attachment chemicals or lack thereof. Okay. And it becomes a surrogate for the belonging we need for our survival when we're feeling alone, isolated, and separate. And you cannot hack your way out of needing belonging. Y'all, like I had cancer as a teenager. Okay. The stakes were so high for me to eat healthy once I learned how much agency I had, right? And yet I couldn't keep it up. And it's not because I lack willpower or discipline. I am one of the most disciplined people I know. Okay. The problem was I felt so alone in so many ways of my life, even though I was surrounded by loving friends, a good job, all the things on paper. But I was keeping parts of myself hidden, right? And some of them I didn't even know I was hiding from myself, let alone other people. And so Food will provide those attachment chemicals, but it does not provide the belonging. Okay. So it provides the sense that we're connected or safe, but it doesn't provide the belonging that is the sustainable solution. And, one of my favorite episodes of Insatiable was Dr. Deborah McNamara. And she was saying, nothing as addictive as something that almost works. Food almost works, but it's never the sustainable solution. Okay. So basically, life after Truce with Food, and you really get this belonging piece, and you develop it within yourself and find those people who want to support this authentic you. And I know authenticity gets thrown around a lot, but you'll really understand what that means for you. Okay. But life after Truce with Food, when you get this belonging piece, is you have natural, sustainable consistency. It's the I want to be healthy instead of forcing compliance through a rigid plan with more rules and eventual rebellion. And this is a natural outcome when you understand your food story. And your food story is also your overall story of what you think it means for you to belong safely. Clients often say of it is like, oh, I no longer feel like I need to be on. I don't have to doubt everything I've said, dressed, worn, done, right? So we get to that story. So natural, sustainable consistency is basically an outcome of understanding your food story and protection patterns, building self-trust rather than relying on external rules, and learning to identify and meet those deeper needs without food. So this is where self-awareness is self-care. Okay. And, again, the program works towards wanting to eat healthy versus forcing compliance. So that's not what most programs do. Okay. So then the last belief or mental chatter that people considering Truce with Food come to is often they think, if there was really a solution, I would have figured it out by now. Okay. I mean, no one loves a rabbit hole more than me, right? And I believe this myself, right? If you listen to early Insatiable episodes, you're like, why are we talking about decluttering in food, Allie? I mean, no one loves a rabbit hole more than me. So I thought I had tried everything. My clients think they have tried everything. My clients tend to be big researchers, right? More knowledge is not the issue, right? But the problem is the solution is hidden because we've been looking in the wrong place. We have not been looking towards this belonging aspect. Okay. So food isn't about food. It's about belonging. And I say that, but it also is about the food. And in Truce with Food, we do address the food. We address the essentials, which is blood sugar and gut health. So you'll understand that, okay, this is why Whole30 was working, or this is why the Mediterranean diet was working. It's not that these plans are magical. They just did a better job of balancing your blood sugar and gut health. And so once you learn how to do that for yourself, you can learn how, so you get some sort of structure, but you have flexibility within that. You don't feel like you have to not eat beans, or if they change the program like Weight Watchers did, all of a sudden I can have fat, or, it's like, just learn how your body works. And then you don't have to worry about these trends. And again, but this belonging piece that we're focusing on essentially at the breakthrough session and right now. So this belonging piece, therapy and nutrition miss it entirely, right? And the other personal development, again, they are great for this agency part, which is like, you have power, you have agency, and agency is independent choice, right? It's knowing that you have choices other than the majority of what's offered out there, right? And so Truce with Food is about discovering you have agency and power where you've historically struggled. So what I love about a lot of the personal development and functional medicine and Whole30 and all these programs is they really get you started, right? It's like, and that's what functional medicine did for me. Oh my God, I can reverse my depression, my IBS. Wow, that's amazing. I get a taste of that freedom, a taste of something outside of weight loss. Now, I did lose 15 pounds as a side effect, and I love that. So it was like, okay, both, right? At the time, 20 years ago when I found this. Functional medicine. And it's kind of known what gets you started with something is not what keeps you going. Okay. So once you realize you have agency, you're going to come up against situations, experiences that put you right back to where you felt unsafe in the past. Okay. And we're going to talk about this in the breakthrough session, but I'm just going to talk about it here. right now in our collective, there is a lot of language around trauma informed, which is fantastic. We need all of that. And yet what we focus on in Truce with Food is it's not really a lot of the trauma that informed our belonging. Some of it can, but it's the cultural conditioning of what we actually thought was normal. That is the work, because that really forms more than anything our belonging story of who we think we have to be good and what is bad. Okay. So for example, I grew up and my dad was actually the one who struggled with his weight. And I mean, I don't know if he struggled, he was thin, but he was constantly monitoring it. He was a health and phys ed teacher, right? And he would run every morning. He would weigh himself every morning. And so what I normalized was that food and weight require constant vigilance. Okay. And I struggled with it. So it was like, of course, right? And so this is what I'm talking about is what we have to address. Ooh, these are the sticky points, right? And that is where more and more resilient, sustainable power comes from. So another way to think of this is in an everyday way is that starting habits is one process and stopping habits is a different process. So starting habits is often rooted in the control you do have, and stopping habits is really understanding when you feel out of control because of your emotions, or what people think of as their stress. But your emotions are overwhelming because of your story. It's not because of your emotions. It's because of what you think they mean about you. And that is the work. Okay. So knowing about your past and how it's showing up today with your eating are two different things. Okay. So again, we're not focusing on necessarily the trauma that happened, although that may come up, but we're looking at how it influences you today. And it's more about the norms that we've all been cultured around, which is especially for women to employ a strategy of restriction around your needs. Okay. So most women's belonging stories have so much conditioning around what it requires for you to be emotionally safe and feel like you belong and are connected and don't have to earn your worth, right? Men have that as well, but they have it around different stuff. We all exist in a culture. Now I'm going off on a rabbit hole, but basically all of, I would say, North American, Western culture is rooted under the assumption that we have to earn our goodness, that we aren't inherently good. So that means whenever we're struggling with food or emotions, it feels like I'm proving that I'm bad and I should have shame, rather than why does this struggle make sense? Okay. So that's really the work, is unlearning cultural conditioning. And again, I always thought of myself as a rebel. I thought I was above mainstream culture. We all have it. Okay. So that's part of the first healing, is like, oh, I am not alone or above it. It's actually in me as well. But anyways, back to not a rabbit hole. So other programs focus on symptoms like food behaviors rather than the root causes like these belonging needs. Okay. So traditional approaches heap on more rules and plans, right? More ways to control, when that's not what's missing. Okay. This is about less is more. This is about, hey, you already know what to do. Let's look at what's getting in the way of that happening consistently. Okay. And you'll actually find that you don't need a 10-step self-care plan, right? Why do we have to tap so much? Why do we have to breathe so much? I mean, breathing is great. Tapping can be helpful. EFT, if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. All of the stuff. But the self-awareness is the self-care when we get to why we think we have to do so much to be just okay. Okay. So we're going to talk about that as well. Okay. So life after Truce with Food on this third piece is you go from knowing to doing. You understand why current or previous approaches can't work because they are missing the belonging piece. Once you see it in your life, you can't unsee it, and you can't unsee it in what other people are claiming. It's really like a superpower. You will come away with a framework and tools for addressing the real issue rather than just symptoms in Truce with Food. And you move from searching for external answers, and you learn to access and trust your internal wisdom. Okay. And look, if you are over 40 or approaching it, you have some real wisdom. And I hope you can look outside in the world and you see what's crazy, right? Food is no different. It's crazy out there. Okay. So we want you to trust in that more. Okay. And build sustainable change to understanding rather than force change because you should do it. Okay. So we're going to go over much more in my breakthrough session. So I really hope you'll join me, especially if I went over these 3 beliefs or mental chatter, we can call them. And this podcast opened up something for you. And was like, yeah, you're right. I haven't really investigated this belonging piece on a deeper level. And we'll go through this more in the breakthrough session. And then we're going to talk about, once you understand it's the belonging piece, how do you set a transformational goal around the real issue? So we'll go over the difference between traditional goals and transformational goals. Okay. And I just want to say this, especially as I age and I'm coming to grips with, yes, I'm 46 and I'm aging and the body does not recover like it used to. I got a DEXA scan last year. I'm about to get a mammogram. I've done MRIs because of secondary cancer issues. I've been tracking that, but it's really important that you make progress on your health goals, like consistency and not being so stressed about food all the time when you're over 40. Okay. It's just different. It doesn't mean you have to panic and make all the changes overnight, but putting this off adds a lot of compound interest to your health and weight challenges. And yes, they get more intertwined the less we pay attention to this. And most importantly, I don't want you wasting any more years with that ongoing food noise that crowds out what you really want to be doing with your life. Okay. Many of my clients have been dealing with these issues since elementary school, middle school, high school. And this continued disconnection from your physical and emotional hungers and being exhausted from food being the project of your life, which then makes you eat because, again, you feel unsafe because you're like, I can't figure this out. What's wrong with me? And being stuck in that perfectionist rebellion cycle is really, really hard. Okay. I was in it for 18 years. I can't even imagine having to be in that cycle right now in menopause. Not always, I sleep better, but it's not like I used to, and raising a toddler. Okay. It's really hard. And as we get over 40, especially, right, and mature into how life works, we have to choose our heart. Okay. It can be the hardness of looking at our story, trusting in ourselves, willing to be with our frustration and not abandon ourselves in that. That's the work of Truce with Food. Or it can be the hard of, I'm going to just keep trying the same thing over and over again. Right. I was telling my trainer, Brandon, that he had told me that I needed to stop doing some sit training for a while because my adrenals are fried. And I said, yeah, I hate doing them, but I feel so much better afterwards. And he's like, yeah, it's like, I feel so much better once I've stopped hitting my head against the ceiling. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. And I mean, we laughed about it, but it's like, okay, like it's hard to keep doing the same thing over and over again. That rests only on control and only on you making food more a part of your life rather than put it in its rightful, mindful place. Okay. And this is just the emotional costs. All of this cycle and not eating healthy takes a real physical toll on your weight and health. Okay. So really think about if what you're doing and considering is going to help you address the real issue. So you won't be in the rebellion part of this perfectionism rebellion cycle in 2 months, 3 months, or 6 months. Okay. And even if you're not going to join Truce with Food, you will get so much value out of this breakthrough session because, well, nobody loves efficiency more than me, right? It actually causes a lot of fights with Carlos and I because I always want efficiency. I just don't want you wasting time, money, and effort in the wrong direction. Okay. So you will at least know how to set a transformational goal and be headed in the right direction when you come to this session. So it's this Wednesday. I'm so excited. I love teaching, and it's going to be good. And again, the link is in the show notes. Register. It's Wednesday from 12 to 1:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's time for Q&A. And there's going to be a special offer for those of you who are live and stay on till the end. And if you're listening to this after January 8th, the call will be recorded and on the Truce with Food program page, which I'll have a link in the show notes. But you really want to come live, especially if you're feeling isolated and separated in this. Being in the live energy with everyone, that is going to help you in and of itself. When we are around other people who are struggling and we really get that we aren't alone, it just melts shame in ways that nothing else does. So come join us and let's take all of these insights or intellectual understanding and let's make them real in your life. Can't wait to see you on the call.